Y'all don't mind the noise in the background. I'm at the laundromat right now, and I'm just drying clothes. Anyway, I'm gonna make one final video about this whole outlook, my whole outlook on this whole Charlie Kirk situation, and because people love to just pretend as though they don't understand what I'm talking about. Because if they don't understand what I'm talking about, they can just feel free to steamroll past what I'm saying to push out what they really want to say more. Anyway, I'll try to paint the picture a different way. I'll try to do that. You know the comedian Patrice O'Neal? Yeah, Patrice O'Neal, legendary comedian. Very good with his examples. So I try to use a joke he said as an example. The missing white woman joke, right? He said to the crowd, do y'all know about Joran Vandersloot? And roughly most of the crowd knew who Joran Vandersloot was, just saying his name. I mean, it kind of sounds familiar. And then he said, yeah, well, he's a serial killer, right? He kills women. That's what he does. He's good at it. You know the woman in Aruba, right? The woman he killed in Aruba? And like the crowd immediately says, oh, yeah. That's Natalie Holloway. Natalie Holloway. That girl's Natalie Holloway. Yeah. The whole crowd knew. Everybody in the crowd knew Natalie Holloway. And then he says, yeah, okay, but remember the girl he just killed? The girl from Peru? Nobody knew what he was talking about. And he said, right, that's what I'm talking about. And that's what's going on here. You notice how the entire crowd knew about Natalie Holloway. They didn't know who the Peru girl was. Most of them probably still don't know who the Peru girl was that got murdered by the same guy. Got unalived by the same guy. The same dude. And here it is, Natalie Holloway gets multiple movies featuring Joran Vandersloot, the guy that took her out. She gets a movie featuring the guy that took her. I mean, the guy that took her out was just a feature. Never mind the fact that the lady from Peru barely got any coverage. The lady from Peru doesn't get all these movies. Her story isn't told nearly the same way. If you even remember her name. If you can even say her name. But we remember Natalie Holloway. Oh yeah, we remember her. We remember Natalie Holloway more than the guy that was out here offing women. That's how much we remember Natalie Holloway, as opposed to the girl from Peru, as opposed to the guy that took her out. And that's what's going on here. And that's my main problem with all of this stuff right here. Okay, with the Charlie Kirk situation. I'm not here to debate whether or not it's sad. I'm not saying it's not sad that he got unalived. I'm not saying that his family shouldn't be prayed over. I'm not saying that it's not sad that he left behind people. I'm not saying that his political views, that's not a talking point for me. Whether or not he's a good Christian or a bad Christian, that's not really my issue. My issue is how people responded to his death. My issue is how everybody responded to his death as opposed to all the other deaths. Somehow, Charlie Kirk's death is the one that wakes people up. Somehow, when Charlie Kirk died, now people seem to understand empathy. Now people seem to understand there's an attack on free speech. Not when Jimmy Kimmel got suspended indefinitely. You know, we didn't understand it at that point. Not when all these other attacks on free speech were happening. We didn't seem to understand it then. Not when people were speaking out against what's happening in Gaza or the Israeli stuff. You didn't seem to understand there was an attack on free speech then. It's only until Charlie got unalived, now you understand it. So when all these young people got unalived, when all these minority lives were taken, you didn't seem to understand senseless violence then. When it was Breonna Taylor and Trayvon, you didn't seem to understand senseless violence at that point. When it was Latin American lives, when it was Asian American lives, when it was Black American lives, you didn't seem to understand senseless violence at that point. It wasn't until it was a rich white life that you now understand senseless violence. Right. He was a good Christian person, and this is an attack on Christianity. Now, us as Christians, we should be on alert. You mean to tell me the over 50 people in, I believe, Ghana that got beheaded? You didn't seem to understand that there was an attack on Christianity then? It took one rich white life for you to finally understand that there's an attack on Christianity? Now you seem to understand? You shouldn't mock or celebrate that Charlie Kirk is now gone. I agree with that. You know what I don't agree with? When it was George Floyd and people were doing the George Floyd challenge, taking pictures of their knees on their friend's neck, taking a picture laughing. You didn't seem to understand that you shouldn't mock the dead then. When all those people were taking pictures and making a meme, a picture of them with Skittles in one hand and a cup in the other hand, and they were doing the Trayvon Martin challenge, making fun of Trayvon's death, you didn't seem to understand that you shouldn't make fun of the dead. That point, you didn't understand it then. But no, it took a rich white life to be taken. Now, all of a sudden, you understand that you shouldn't make fun of the dead. Oh, he was just speaking his mind. An innocent life was taken. Okay, understood. But when Breonna was just sitting in her home and she got unalived, you didn't seem to understand that innocent lives get taken every day. You didn't seem to understand it then. You see my point? It's problematic when you only see a problem when it's done to a white person. It's problematic when you only have empathy when your eyes are only open when it's a white life that gets taken. You see the problem there? An innocent white life getting taken, sad. That is sad. Senseless violence is senseless violence no matter what the color is. I agree with that. But you shouldn't only understand this stuff when it's just an innocent white life. Innocent white life getting taken is not like an everyday thing that's just being mass reported and it's just happening en masse. So you learning the lesson isn't going to happen that often. And in the meantime, there are a lot of minority lives getting taken. a lot of lives that you view as lesser than. And when those minority lives are taken, it's like the community says, oh, well, let's look over their entire life and take all this stuff out of context and say they might have deserved it. You might have deserved it. But when it's this innocent, supposedly innocent Christian white life, oh no, now it's senseless violence. Now we need to come together as a country. Now we need to pray for families. Now we need to do all this other stuff that you should have done when it was a minority life. I mean, when it's just an innocent white life, you see the problem. In the meantime, a lot of minority lives that are just as important, whether you realize it or not, just as important as white lives. And by the way, when Charlie died, we didn't say, oh, well, yeah, it's sad that Charlie died, but all lives matter. We didn't say that because that's incredibly insensitive. That's crazy to say that. Point is, you shouldn't recognize that life matters when it's just an innocent white life. That's crazy. That is problematic when you only recognize these things when it's an innocent white life. And that's all I got to say about it.